Today, December 4th, Archangel Michael says, I order you to open this now, don't skip, this is not a joke, your face is, open it immediately, God is crying loudly because you always skip him. It's an emergency, this is not a joke. Don't tell anyone. It's only for you, open it quickly. I speak now because the threshold has been crossed, and there are moments in the long current of eternity when silence becomes betrayal, when waiting becomes abandonment, and when the gentle whisper of the divine must transform into a voice that trembles the air around you, because you have walked for too long with your head lowered, pretending you did not hear what has been calling your name since the first night you cried into the dark and hoped something greater was listening. And I tell you this with urgency because today matters in a way you do not yet understand. The veil is thinner, the signs are loud, and the measure of your heart is shifting like a star being dragged toward a new orbit, because nothing stays numb forever, not the sky, not the soul, not the truth you keep postponing like a letter you're afraid to open. There is a sound in the heavens that does not resemble thunder or wind or any language you've encountered in the soft gravity of earth. It is the alarm of awakening, the ringing of celestial metal, the resonance of urgency that moves through dimensions like a pulse, and I have stood beside that sound as it shook the halls of spirit. I have heard angels pause in their eternal duties, lifting their heads in wonder and sorrow, because something in humanity is reaching a point of exhaustion, a collective ache, a fatigue of pretending, and the divine has wept not because you are sinful but because you are lonely, not because you are defiant but because you are afraid, and heaven has always known that fear disguises itself as indifference, silence, distraction. Today matters because threads of destiny gather and separate like rivers, because choices you have ignored for years are pressing at the door, because the universe is tired of waiting for you to recognize yourself, and the longer you push away the quiet inner voice that keeps repeating the same truth, the more painful it becomes, not because someone is punishing you, but because avoiding what is real is like holding your breath underwater while pretending it doesn't burn your lungs. You have skipped the messages before, scrolled past the signs, dismissed the whispers as coincidence, laughed off the strange flickers of intuition, and convinced yourself that urgency was melodrama, that inner trembling meant nothing, that you could always deal with it later, later when life calmed down, when you felt stronger, when something miraculous happened to force you into alignment like a cosmic intervention that would save you from the effort of choosing. But every angel knows that later is the most successful trap ever invented, and you have fallen into it with grace, with logic, with excuses that sound noble, like, I just need to get myself together first, or, I know I should change but I'm not ready, or, it doesn't matter, I'm fine, when in truth you have been anything but fine. God has not cried because you disobeyed some rule, but because you abandoned your own heart, because you keep exiling the most sacred parts of yourself, leaving them on the doorstep like orphans waiting for you to return, and the grief of heaven is not wrath but longing, the longing of a love that watches you shrink when you were built to be vast, luminous, extraordinary in your own quiet way, because magnificence does not always look like a crown, sometimes it looks like a trembling human trying one more time to face the truth. There is disappointment in the higher realms, not in you as a soul, but in the numbness that has swallowed so many lives like a slow, elegant poison. Screens, noise, busy schedules, external noise, internal self-erasure, patterns that erase the sacred the way the sea erases footprints in the sand, and angels have watched humanity forget the language of stillness, the pulse of instinct, the ache of purpose, because you do not know how to be with yourself anymore, how to sit in silence without filling it with distraction, how to let the truth rise like a tide without immediately drowning it with noise. I speak with authority, but not the kind that crushes, the kind that recognizes the weight of what is unfolding, because there are warnings that are not threats but truths spoken before the consequences write themselves into your days, before the sorrow deepens into resignation, before the light dims into numb survival, and I am here not to frighten you into obedience but to awaken you into awareness. Because there is a difference between fear and clarity is what you have avoided for years by telling yourself stories that kept you safe from change. This message is for you alone, not because others are unworthy, but because you are at a crossroads that no one around you can see, because something has already begun inside you that feels subtle but undeniable, and perhaps you have noticed it: restlessness, unease, sudden waves of emotion without explanation, dreams that feel heavier than sleep, synchronicities that appear then vanish before you can interpret them, an inexplicable sense that time is speeding up, that life is shifting behind the curtain, that something is counting down even though you cannot name it. Your soul knows what your mind refuses to articulate. You are being invited to stop running from yourself, to open the inner door that has been rattling, trembling, begging for attention, and I will tell you this clearly because you deserve clarity. The longer you postpone opening that door, the more intense the knocking becomes, not because you are punished, but because healing is persistent. Awakening is persistent. Destiny is persistent. If you continue reading, something will awaken or intensify, not because these words have magic, but because you are already on the edge of awakening, already vibrating with the ache of transformation, and sometimes it takes a moment of shock to break the trance. A voice from beyond the ordinary to remind you that your life is not random, that you did not arrive here by accident, that the pain you have carried is not meaningless, and that the ache you feel in your chest is not weakness but evidence of a soul that refuses to die quietly. You were not chosen because you are perfect or obedient or devout. You were chosen because you are raw, wounded, stubborn, beautiful in your brokenness, fragile and fierce in the same breath, because you are the kind of being who learns slowly but deeply, who loves fiercely despite fear, who questions endlessly but secretly hopes for something holy to answer back. The cosmos does not recruit the flawless. It recruits the open, the shattered, the ones who know what it means to fall apart and still return to the world with trembling hands and hopeful eyes. And I tell you this with full authority: you have been watched, not with surveillance but with tenderness, accompanied, not with control but with fierce protection, guided, not with commandments but with quiet presence. The kind that whispers instead of shouts because love does not demand, it invites. There is a countdown occurring, not to disaster, but to revelation, not to punishment, but to awakening, and the deadline is not a date on a calendar but a threshold in your life, a moment when you can no longer pretend you don't know, when the inner pressure becomes unbearable, when truth erupts because suppression has become too heavy, and I tell you with compassion, you are closer to that moment than you realize. If you feel fear rising right now, do not shame yourself. Fear is a sign of proximity to truth, the body's instinctive recognition that something familiar is ending and something unknown is beginning, but the unknown is not here to devour you, it is here to call you forward, to ask you to risk one breath of honesty, one gesture of courage, one vow to stop disappearing from your own life. And though I speak as Archangel Michael, do not imagine armor and wings as symbols of superiority, they are symbols of devotion, of service, of relentless love that refuses to watch you collapse into silence, and everything I say now comes from that devotion, that fierce tenderness, that cosmic commitment to your becoming, not your compliance. So listen, you do not have to believe in angels, or heaven, or destiny, for your life to change. You only have to admit that the way you have been living is no longer sustainable, that something aches for expression, that the numbness is cracking, and that even if you don't know where you're going, you cannot stay where you are. Type, Amen, Lord, I receive your favor, if you're opening your heart to His blessing. And if you can hold that truth, even for a moment, you are already beginning. I am still here, speaking to you, because this moment is not small, and I know you may feel tired, or unsure, or confused about why any of this matters, but the truth is that something brought you here, something in you wanted to keep reading even when you didn't know what you were looking for, and that small choice is more important than you think, because every change, every awakening, every shift in a life begins with a tiny moment of attention, of curiosity, of maybe I should listen to this, even if you don't fully understand why. There are reasons I speak now, reasons this message arrived today, reasons life has been pressing on you in ways you can feel in your chest, your stomach, your mind, even if you cannot put the feeling into words. You have been restless, tired of old patterns, tired of pretending you do not care, tired of smiling when you want to cry, tired of acting strong because you believe falling apart means you failed. And the truth is, so many humans are like this right now, moving through life with empty hearts, silent minds, and souls that whisper, "Please remember me," but the noise of the world is so loud that the whispers get lost. The spiritual realm sees this, not with anger, but with worry, with sadness, because there is a kind of loneliness that cannot be fixed by friends or relationships or entertainment, because it is the loneliness of being disconnected from your own soul, and so many of you walk with that loneliness every day and tell yourselves that this is normal, that this is just how life is. But I promise you, it was never meant to be like this. There are signs everywhere, and I do not mean magical signs or dramatic miracles, I mean the simple signs your life keeps showing you, the same problems repeating, the same lessons returning, the same empty feeling after doing things that used to satisfy you, the sudden mood drops, the feeling that time is slipping away faster than before, the sense that something is ending even though nothing has ended yet. These are spiritual alarms, gentle but steady, saying, pay attention, something needs to change, something in you is ready to grow, and if you keep ignoring this, the discomfort will continue to grow louder. Not as punishment, but because truth tries to return to the surface over and over until you are ready to see it. Humans often think awakening is about light and joy and big visions, but many awakenings begin with exhaustion, boredom, or sadness. They begin with the feeling, I can't keep living like this, even if the life you are living looks fine on the outside. Many people look fine on the outside while dying slowly on the inside, not from illness, but from lack of meaning, lack of connection, lack of honesty. It is easy to stay busy, to stay distracted, to keep moving from one thing to the next, because slowing down means seeing yourself, and seeing yourself means facing the truth you have pushed away for years, the truth that you want more, that you deserve better, that you are not living the way you hoped you would, that fear has been in control for far too long. Fear is not the enemy, fear is a messenger. It says, there is something important here, but most people treat fear like a wall instead of a doorway. They stop the moment they feel it, instead of walking through it. One of the saddest things I have seen is how many humans believe fear means, do not try, when fear often means, this matters to your soul. Your life has rhythms, like the tides of an ocean. There are seasons when you grow, seasons when you break, seasons when you rest, seasons when you rise again. But many people try to stay in one season forever, trying to hold everything together, trying to pretend nothing ever changes. But life changes, spirit changes, identity changes, and ignoring change does not stop it, it only makes it painful. You are not weak because you struggle because you are growing. You are not failing because you feel lost because you are leaving an old life behind. You are not broken because you cry because something inside you is melting, softening, opening. There are angels who watch this global pain with deep compassion, because humans were given the gift of feeling, and sometimes that gift becomes a burden so heavy they forget it is also a doorway. Life hurts not because you are cursed, but because your heart is sensitive, alive, not numb, and being alive means you feel both joy and sorrow. But there is something more happening now, something many souls feel even if they don't speak about it. There is a shift, like the world is waking up a little at a time, but with waking up comes discomfort, because when the soul stretches, the body and mind feel it. You may feel like you don't belong anywhere, like you don't fit into the life you built, like the things you used to love no longer fill you, like you want something but you don't know what it is yet. This is not depression or failure, this is spiritual change. You are shedding old layers, old beliefs, old fears, old habits, old versions of yourself that cannot come with you into the next chapter. You were not made to stay the same forever. Growth is not an insult to your past, growth is the reward. You may be afraid of change because change means risk, and risk means losing control, but I tell you gently, you have already lost control, because life has been moving faster than your plans, because your emotions have been changing without permission, because your soul has been shifting without your approval. This is not chaos, this is movement. This is life responding to your deeper wishes, the ones you made in quiet moments when you said, "I want to be happier," or "I want to feel alive," or "I want something real." The universe hears wishes the mind forgets, and then it starts rearranging things in ways that feel uncomfortable, because comfort rarely brings transformation. And you might think, "I don't feel ready," but no one ever feels ready. Humans grow into readiness, not from it. You also may think, "I am not strong enough," but strength is not something you wait for, it is something you build step by step, like a muscle that grows only when used. You are seen, not with judgment but with deep tenderness. Everything you have gone through has shaped you, taught you, changed you, even the things you wish never happened. You are not defined by your worst moments, you are shaped by surviving them. There is something strange about the human heart, it breaks, and the breaking creates room for more love, more compassion, more truth. A closed heart cannot hold much, but a cracked heart can hold oceans. You may feel alone, but you have never been alone. There have always been moments when you felt something watching over you, some presence that arrived when you needed it most, some comfort that came when you thought you would collapse, some strange peace that did not make sense, but helped you survive. Those moments were not luck. They were care. Many people think angels show up only in miracles, but most angelic work is simple, helping you take one more breath, one more step, one more day. I speak not to lift you into perfection, but to take you out of sleep. Many people are asleep while awake, walking, working, speaking, living, but disconnected from their own hearts. Life becomes a pattern of doing instead of being, surviving instead of living. And there comes a moment when the soul says, "Enough," and that moment feels uncomfortable, frightening, empty, confusing, but it is actually a sign of awakening, not collapse. You are being invited to be honest with yourself, not perfect, just honest. To ask simple questions. Am I happy? Am I present? Am I growing? Am I kind to myself? If the answer is no, it's not failure, it is information. Your life does not need to look spiritual for you to be spiritual. You only need to pay attention, to feel, to question, to care. And a change does not have to be huge, dramatic, or immediate. Sometimes the most powerful change is a tiny shift in direction, a small yes, a quiet promise to stop abandoning yourself. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not hopeless. You are here, reading this, feeling something move in you, even if you do not know what it is yet. And that is enough for now. The rest will unfold as you grow, not as you force. I will stay with you through this message, through your doubt, through your fear, through your questions, because this journey is not only yours, it is ours, and you do not walk it alone. I am still speaking to you because there are things you need to hear, and not just in a dramatic, emotional way, but in a real and human way, because this is about your life, your heart, your story, and you may not realize how much you carry inside you, how many pieces of yourself you have hidden away so that you could keep going, keep working, keep smiling. Keep pretending you were fine when parts of you were falling apart in the quiet hours no one else ever sees. I want you to understand that I see you, not in some distant, holy way, but in a close, personal way, like someone standing next to you in a dark room, someone who knows the truth you don't say out loud. I see the nights when you couldn't sleep, not because your body was tired, but because your mind kept running, replaying memories, replaying choices, replaying mistakes. I see the mornings when you woke up with a heavy feeling in your chest before you even opened your eyes. I see the times you shut down because you didn't want to explain yourself, because explaining always made you feel weak or dramatic, and you were tired of being misunderstood. You have lived through things that you thought you would not survive, and maybe you don't call them trauma, maybe you don't label them as big events, but emotional pain is heavy even when it is private, even when it is invisible to others. You carry the weight of heartbreaks, disappointments, betrayals, losses, changes you did not ask for, and promises that were never kept, and even if you act strong, the truth is, some part of you has never fully healed from those things. Many people think healing looks like becoming joyful every day, but real healing often looks like learning how to live with tenderness again, how to feel again without shutting down, how to trust again without expecting pain, how to show up in your life without hiding behind a mask. Healing is not loud, it is slow, quiet, messy, and sometimes lonely. You are not weak because you still feel the hurt. You are not weak because you are sensitive. Sensitivity is not a flaw, it is a sign that your heart is still alive. Hard hearts can't feel love, only numbness. Soft hearts can feel everything, and that is both a blessing and a burden. I know you have moments when you think, why am I like this? Why can't I just be numb like other people? Why do things hit me so hard? But you were not made to be cold or untouched. You were made to notice, to care, to connect, to feel deeply, even when it hurts. There are parts of your story you never talk about, not because they are secrets, but because you don't have the energy to explain them, or because you worry people will judge you, or because you feel like you should be over it by now. But time does not fix everything. Some wounds simply grow with you. And it's okay if there are parts of you that still ache. It doesn't mean you failed. You have also learned the skill of pretending. You pretend you are okay so you don't worry others. You pretend you don't care so you don't get hurt again. You pretend you don't need help because you don't want to depend on anyone. You pretend you are strong because you don't want to break down in front of people who wouldn't know what to do with your broken pieces anyway. Comment, "Thank you, Father, for never letting go," if you felt His steady hand on your life. Pretending kept you alive, but it also made you lonely. There is a loneliness that comes from not being seen, but there is a deeper loneliness that comes from hiding yourself. You hide because you don't want to be judged, because you don't want to be a burden, because you don't want to be misunderstood, but hiding costs you something. It costs you connection. And you have spent so long trying to survive on your own that you forget you were never meant to carry everything by yourself. I know there were moments in your life when you cried alone because you didn't want anyone to see you break. I know there were moments when all you wanted was someone to hold you and tell you, you are safe, you are allowed to feel this, you don't need to be strong right now. But you didn't get that. Maybe no one ever said those words to you. Maybe they didn't show up when you needed them. Maybe you learned that love is unpredictable, that comfort is rare, that safety is a luxury. And because of that, you became independent not out of desire, but out of necessity. People admire your strength, but they don't understand the price you paid for it. You are both strong and tired, brave and bruised, capable and overwhelmed. And I want you to know that it is okay to be all of those things at once. You don't have to be perfect, healed, stable, or fearless to be worthy. You don't have to hide your sadness to deserve love. You don't have to prove your value by pretending you are not hurting. Your struggle is part of your story, not a sign of failure. You may think, other people have it worse, so I shouldn't complain, but emotional pain is not a competition. Your heart is allowed to hurt even if someone else is hurting too. Your story matters even if it is not dramatic. Your pain is real even if you try to dismiss it. There is something you need to hear clearly: you are allowed to feel everything you feel. You are allowed to cry, to break down, to be angry, to be confused, to want more, to be tired of pretending. None of this makes you weak. It makes you human. There were times you asked for help in small ways, without saying it out loud, hoping someone would notice, but they didn't, and that taught you to stay silent. It taught you to take care of yourself because no one else would. But you were not meant to live a life where you carry every burden alone. You think people don't see you, but they do. They just don't see the real you, because you don't let them. Not because you don't want love, but because you don't trust it. Trust is hard for people who have been hurt, especially when the hurt came from someone who should have protected them. You learn to expect abandonment, disappointment, silence. You learn to take care of yourself because no one taught you how to rely on others. And even now, when someone tries to love you, you pull away, not because you don't want love, but because you are scared of losing it. There is a part of you that wants to open up, and a part of you that wants to lock every door before anyone gets close enough to break you again. Healing is not about choosing one part of you over the other. Healing is about helping both parts feel safe in the same body. I know you feel lost sometimes, like you don't know who you are anymore, like you are floating between versions of yourself, unsure of where you belong. This is normal during change. When a snake sheds its skin, it does not know what it will look like underneath. When a tree drops its leaves, it does not know how its new branches will grow. Growth feels like loss before it feels like freedom. You may feel empty, confused, restless, like something is missing, but that emptiness is space being created for what is next. You may feel tired, not because you are weak, but because inner change takes energy, even if no one sees it. You do not need to rush your journey. You are not late. You are not behind. You are becoming, and becoming is messy. Sometimes all you can do is wake up and try again, and that is more than enough. You are seen, not as a failure, not as a burden, not as someone who needs to fix themselves before they are loved. You are seen as someone who has tried, survived, felt, learned, and grown in quiet ways that no one may ever fully understand. And I want you to know this: nothing you went through was wasted. Not the pain, not the tears, not the confusion. It all shaped you into someone capable of deeper love, deeper understanding, deeper truth. You are not done growing. You are not done changing. And you are not alone in this. I will stay with you, speaking, guiding, reminding you of what you forget when life becomes heavy. You are allowed to feel, to hope, to rest, to be human, and you are not abandoned. There is more to say, and I will say it gently. I want to talk to you about your relationship with something bigger than yourself, not in a strict or religious way, but in a simple and human way, because every person has a connection to something unseen, whether they believe in it or not, and that connection becomes weak when life becomes heavy, when the heart becomes tired, when trust becomes hard. You have gone through times when you felt disconnected from anything sacred, when you wondered if there was anything looking out for you at all, when you prayed or hoped or begged, but the silence felt endless, and you thought, maybe no one hears me, maybe nothing cares. But silence is not absence. Silence often means listening. The divine does not rush in with loud answers every time you are scared, because answers given too fast are easy to forget. Sometimes you must sit with uncertainty so that the answer, when it comes, becomes part of you. You have felt abandoned, but you were never abandoned. You were simply walking through a part of your life where the only way forward was through experience, not rescue. There is a gentle truth you may not like, but you need to hear. Some of the things you went through could not be stopped, because stopping them would have stopped your growth. Pain changed you, yes, but it also woke you up. You would not be who you are now if everything had always been easy. People often think that if God or angels cared, nothing bad would happen, but that is not how growth works. A child does not learn to walk without falling. A heart does not learn compassion without breaking. A soul does not grow without being stretched. This does not mean your pain was planned or deserved. It just means that even when life hurt you, you kept moving, and that movement shaped you. You survived things you never thought you would, and you did it with little help, with little comfort, with little guidance, and maybe you don't see it, but that makes you brave. You may think bravery is loud and heroic, but most bravery is silent. It is waking up again. It is trying again. It is caring again after being hurt. You think the divine expects perfection, but perfection is not the goal. The goal is honesty. The goal is presence. The goal is connection. The divine does not want you to pretend to be strong. The divine wants you to tell the truth about where you are. I am hurting. I am scared. I don't know what I'm doing. I want something different. Those truths are prayers, even if you never say them out loud. You have ignored your inner voice for a long time, not because you are careless, but because your life has been loud, stressful, busy. You pushed away your emotions because they felt inconvenient. You pushed away your needs because you didn't want to be selfish. You pushed away your dreams because they seemed unrealistic or childish. And somewhere along the way, you forgot that you are allowed to want things. You forgot that love is not earned by suffering. You forgot that being gentle with yourself is not weakness. The divine is not watching you with anger, it is watching you with sorrow, because you treat yourself with less love than you deserve. You say cruel things to yourself that you would never say to someone else. You expect yourself to carry everything alone. You punish yourself for mistakes you made when you were hurting, confused, or young. You look at your wounds and call them failures, instead of proof that you lived. This is where things need to change. Not because you are bad, but because you are tired. God is not crying because you are disobedient. God is crying because you are hurting and you refuse to give yourself comfort. Angels are not looking at you with judgment, they are looking at you with compassion, hoping you will put down the heavy weight you keep dragging with you. You think you are alone because no one understands you, but there is something sacred living inside you that knows you better than you know yourself. Something that does not leave when you shut down, when you make mistakes, when you withdraw, when you break. Something that whispers, "Come back to yourself," even when you are sure you are not worth coming back to. You are not unworthy. You are not forgotten. You are not too broken to be loved. The divine is not waiting for you to become perfect before you are loved. You are loved now. You have always been loved. You may not feel it because you confuse love with constant comfort. Love is not always comfort. Sometimes love is staying beside you while you rebuild yourself, even if you don't notice. You have been running from your inner self because you are afraid that if you stop, you will feel everything at once, and it will crush you. But feeling will not crush you, hiding will. You do not need to heal everything today. You do not need to fix your whole life before you can rest. You do not need to earn peace by suffering more first. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to sit still and say, I don't know what to do, but I am willing to feel, I am willing to try. There is a quiet part of you that still believes in something higher, even if you don't talk about it, even if you doubt it, even if you feel angry at it sometimes. That small belief is enough. It does not need to be strong or perfect. It only needs to be real. The relationship between you and the divine is not built on rules or fear. It is built on trust, honesty, and patience. You do not need to hide your pain from heaven. You do not need to pretend you have it all figured out. You do not need to be pure or spiritual or wise. You only need to be yourself. And that is enough. You are loved in your confusion, not just in your clarity. You are loved in your weakness, not just in your strength. You are loved in your becoming, not just in your completion. There is still more to say, and I will say it gently, because you deserve kindness in the places where life was not kind to you. I am still speaking to you because there is something important happening inside you, even if it feels small or unclear. You may not notice it, but a part of you is waking up, a part that has been quiet for a long time, and this change can feel strange, heavy, emotional, or even frightening, because change often feels like something breaking before it feels like something forming. This part of your life is not random. It is a turning point, a moment when something inside you says, I cannot keep living the same way, I want something true, something that feels alive. You may not have said these words out loud, but you have felt them in your chest, in your tiredness, in your frustration, in your quiet sadness that appears at night when everything else is quiet. There is urgency, not because you are in danger, but because you are outgrowing an old version of yourself, and if you try to stay in that version, it will feel painful. You are not being punished, you are being pushed to move forward. Life has a way of showing you, again and again, that certain habits, relationships, environments, or beliefs do not fit you anymore. The more you try to force yourself to fit into places you have outgrown, the more uncomfortable life becomes. Think about the times you felt stuck, trapped, bored, or numb. Think about the moments when you tried to force yourself to be okay with things that didn't feel right. Think about how your body reacted, tension in your chest, heaviness in your stomach, tiredness that sleep didn't fix. These were not random feelings. They were signals that something in you was ready for change. People often think the hardest part of change is doing something new, but often the hardest part is letting go of what is familiar, even when it hurts. We stay in situations that drain us because we fear losing stability. We hold on to people who don't see us because we fear being alone. We repeat old habits because we fear the unknown. But there comes a moment when fear becomes too heavy to carry, and your soul says, would rather be uncertain than numb. That moment is a turning point. Some people ignore it, and the numbness gets worse. Some people listen to it, and their life begins to shift. This is the moment you are in now. There is a quiet warning in this time, not a threat, not a curse, but a truth. If you keep postponing what you know in your heart, you will suffer more, not because you are punished, but because you are resisting what is natural to you. Growth is natural. Honesty is natural. Change is natural. The only thing that is unnatural is forcing yourself to stay small when something inside you wants to expand. You may feel afraid to move forward because you don't know what comes next. But no one knows what comes next. Life does not give you the whole map. Life gives you a step at a time, a feeling at a time, a moment of courage at a time. You may think you need a big plan, a big breakthrough, a big sign, but most transformation begins with something very simple, admitting that you cannot live the same way anymore. Admitting that you want better. Admitting that you deserve better. Even if you don't know how to get there. There is a story you have told yourself for a long time, a story that says, "I am fine, even when you are not fine." You repeat it because it feels safe, because it protects you from judgment, because it keeps life predictable. But that story is too small for you now. There is another story waiting inside you. One where you are honest, where you listen to your heart, where you trust your own voice, where you stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable, where you stop apologizing for wanting more, where you stop pretending you don't care when you actually care deeply. But stepping into that new story might mean losing old patterns, old beliefs, old identities. It might mean facing pain you avoided for years. It might mean saying goodbye to something that has been part of you for a long time. That is why this time feels heavy. You are between two versions of yourself. You are not who you used to be, and you are not yet who you are becoming. This in-between state feels like confusion, like emptiness, like loneliness, like impatience, but it is actually growth. You are shedding. You are releasing. You are making space. Do not mistake emptiness for failure. Emptiness is preparation. Write, Amen. My hope is alive, if your trust in Him has not faded. And share this video.